We are flexible. Meanwhile, this is good, and I think against such teams it is necessary to be in some things a little bit surprising for them, because they are too good and they prepare for this game, and they are too strong to not find solutions against you. So you have to be on your highest tactically and physically, and also, with your positive mindset. I think this has to be on the highest level. But when it is, then you have always a chance.
Hi.
Despite Southampton obviously winning midweek, they've struggled in the Premier League this season, and the manager's under pressure. Is this a good or bad time to be playing them?
I don't have an idea. I don't know. I'm not in the dressing room, I'm not in the thoughts. We have experienced some really tough matches against them, and I expect a difficult game again.
There's been a real shift in atmosphere at the Emirates this season, and it feels like the first time in a long, long time that the fans feel really behind the team, you as a manager, and your style of play. What does that mean to you? And does that bring extra pressure to continue winning?
I think that brings joy and more willingness to continue our journey together and get better. I think when you see people happy, people attached to what we are doing, and a club that is connected from top to bottom is exactly what you want. And now we need to give them the right reasons to continue to be as supported and as excited as they are right now.
And the load on the players this season is likely to be the highest we've ever seen, obviously with their first ever Winter World Cup. How do you assess the depth of your squad and your ability to remain competitive against, more experienced squads?
It will depend in a lot of factors, how players are performing, the injuries that you have, what happens in that World Cup. There is a lot of question marks there that we don't have the answers to. We are planning to obviously have the right resources to continue the way we are right now, but again, as you said, it never happened. We have to all experience and try our best to get the right outcome.
And you have a wealth of talent at left back, obviously Zinchenko, Tomiyasu and Tierney. How do you decide which player who to start? Obviously they've all started at different points this season. And how do you keep them all happy?
What we want to keep them is all competitive. To keep them all happy, I think, is impossible, because when one plays and the other one is not as happy as the one that is playing. But I think the three of them, when they play, they've been really good, and this is what we need. In different games we need different things in that position, and we adapt each game.
And finally from me, is an unused sub remaining in the dugout until full time a non-negotiable?
Sorry?
Cristiano.
Yeah?
Is an unused sub remaining in the dugout until the end of the match?
I think
is that a non-negotiable?
That depends on any club. I don't know. I just look after my club, which I have a lot to worry.
Okay, James. How's Saka? He came off 5 minutes from time.
I think he's fine. I think he was a bit struggling at the end, but hopefully he will be fine for Sunday.
And Martinelli okay? He obviously came on yesterday. Good.
Yeah, he came on. He had a tough week. He wasn't feeling great during the week, but towards the day before the game, he was already feeling better, and that's why we decided to play him a little bit.
And Zinchenko, how close is he to returning?
I think it's close. He's getting better and better, and he's progressing really well. He had a setback on that injury that he had at the start of the season, which is a shame, but knowing Alex, he will be back very soon.
Not this weekend, though?
I can't tell you.
So he's in contention, potentially?
He's always in contention.
Okay. Just a word on Xhaka. His turnaround must have been made of 3 years ago, being booed off by his own fans. What role have you played in his new-found form and his different role here at Arsenal since then? I
think everybody at the club has been trying to give him support and try to help him. Sometimes try to guide him, so try to encourage him, sometimes calm him down. He's a player with a big character that is very passionate about everything that he does, but at the same time it's a really honest and humble guy, and I think he deserves what he's getting.
When you arrived, was he close to leaving?
I think he was. At least he had some thoughts about that possibility in his head, and we just tried to convince him to give himself and the club another opportunity.
What did you say?
I think he talked about it. I don't like to talk about private conversation. I think he's made it clear in the press what happened, and I leave it there.
and you're talking about the schedule there. Interesting. Last night I read that you were saying that you want players to continue playing. You're not going to rotate the squad as much. Is that feasible though, given the amount of games that are coming?
We are going to rotate the squad, but I cannot change 11 players in the lineup every 3 days. It's crazy. And we don't have enough numbers to change 11 players in every game. We were with 15, 16 outfield players in the last 4 or 5 weeks. So players are going to have to play, and if we want robust players, they're going to have to start to do that early in their careers.
Can I ask you about Steven Gerrard? What was your reaction to him?
Very sad for him. He's a player that I admire a lot, a person that I really respect, a manager that he did extremely well at Rangers. He started really well at Villa, but this job is like this, unfortunately. So from my side, all the support, because I'm sure he's having a difficult time.
Do you think he'll come back and manage in the Premier League again?
I'm sure he will, yeah.
And just finally, one on Southampton, if that's all right. This game last season you lost, and it ended up being crucial in terms of missing out on Champions League places. Is there almost a score to settle in that sense?
Well, obviously there is an experience that it was painful, especially the way the game turned up and the consequences to it. So we know where the danger is with that team.
Mikel, hello. Just wondering, in the World Cup, what's the plans for Arsenal? What are you going to do with the players who aren't selected? Are you going to go? I believe Newcastle going to Saudi Arabia. What are Arsenal going to do? Have you decided?
Yeah, we are planning. We have a few options that we are trying to close down. It will depend on how many players are selected there. But yeah, we have a few plans.
Are you going to try and be close to Qatar so that players who get knocked out of the tournament can join up with you?
It's a possibility, yes.
Okay. In terms of Southampton, they've been a tricky side for Arsenal at times over the Emirates in the past few years. Are they also tricky to play because you don't know what Southampton's going to turn up? They're very streaky. They win a few, lose a few. Does that make it difficult for you?
Well, it's difficult. Obviously, we have a day to prepare the game. Obviously, we have watched certain games. We haven't finalized all the preparation because we have a training session tomorrow. And against us, they played in various ways. So we know what we can expect, but we don't have certainty how they're going to start the game.
In terms of a quarter of the season gone, how would you analyse it so far?
Well, very positive. The winning percentage is extremely high. The way we are performing is really good, and we are in the position that we want to be.
Yeah, you're in the position top in the country, number one. So does that mean you're the best team in the country at the moment?
That means that now we are there, but it's a long season, and we have to deserve to be there when it comes to May.
Okay, Nick.
Hi Mikel. The club have informed us today that Martin Odegaard has won a special award in Norway as the best Norwegian player, effectively. Just some thoughts on Martin and his progress? Yeah,
very happy. He got that award when we were in Norway to play Bodo, and he was very surprised with it. I think he needs to take it as a big compliment. It's a big award. I think he was really happy with it, so we are proud of him.
Does that make him a better player than Erling Haaland? Would you rather have Martin than Haaland?
I'm really happy to have Martin.
And just a word about Ainsley Maitland-Niles, of course, is on loan at Southampton, so can't play. How's he getting on? He's not really playing much for them, is he?
Yes, obviously he won't be able to play against us, and as you said, he hasn't played that much. Hopefully he can get the minutes, he can pick up some momentum as well, because we need him to play the games.
Has he got a future at Arsenal, or is that him finished at the club now?
Well, the future that he has right now is his present. Is the most important thing is for him to get there and get his place and start to perform at the level that he can.
What can he do to get back to the levels he was in England international not long ago?
That's something now for his manager to probably answer, because he's not with us, and he needs to focus now in the present, which is the most important thing for his future.
Okay, 10:30 tonight, guys.
Hi.
Well, Arsenal are having their best ever start to a Premier League season. They are still top, and after Manchester City losing last weekend, they're probably going to stay there this weekend as well, Sam. What have you made of them, and how realistic is their title challenge?
Yeah, it's difficult. It's two different answers, I think. What I've made of them, I've been really impressed. They've been great. Probably carried this on longer than I thought they would have. Well, it probably is controversial, but everybody in the media seems to say the same thing. Whether it's pundits or journalists or, I don't know, maybe even players. I'm not expecting this title push to go on all season. Said earlier on, it's a shame that City didn't play Arsenal this week, because that would have been a great test for both teams. But also, I do get the feeling that whenever that game's played in that March time, City will just be miles clear. And that might be really... I think it is probably unfair, because they've started so well. They deserve to be top. There's no kind of, oh, you've only played this team and you've only played that team now, because they've played good teams. They've come through and they've won the game. So I have been really impressed with them. Didn't expect them to be this good. So absolutely fair play. But I don't expect them to win the league. But maybe I'll come back in here in March and they are still top, and you think, I've got to believe it now because they're still there.
I think they can go to the World Cup.
Top by the World Cup.
Yeah.
Well, City's games are easy though, aren't they? Fairly, those
Chelsea,
4 games I mentioned. But
Arsenal only faced Chelsea in I would say the toughest game in their build to the break. But I just think that they've all bought it. It took Arteta a while, but I think they've all bought into how he wants to play. He's got the players that he wants there now. I think Jesus has been a fantastic signing for them. And in terms, we think about teams that have been successful, and the Man City team and Liverpool team, that front four has always been the reason why. And you look at Arsenal's front four now: Martinelli, Jesus, Odegaard, Saka. Arguably they're as good as, they're better than, I would say, the Liverpool front four at the minute. It's only the Man City one that's better than them. So I think that they can sustain it. And I think if they go into the break top of the league, Arsenal will have to invest in January because the squad depth isn't good enough.
Well, I read an interesting article this week about the fact that it's quite interesting that Pep Guardiola has almost given Arsenal the tools to go on this title challenge against them.
The league, Arsenal will have to invest in January because the squad depth isn't good enough.
Well, I read an interesting article this week about the fact that it's quite interesting that Pep Guardiola has almost given Arsenal the tools to go on this title challenge against them because, of course, signing Jesus and Zinchenko this summer. How much do you read into that?
Well, I mean, they've definitely helped, haven't they? I think that just goes to show, we talked earlier on about the amount of good things that City do and the amount of good things they've got, the level of ability and professionalism in that squad. We talked about they lose a game and then they just bounce straight back as if it's never happened. That is the mentality that's all the way through the squad. So to take even just 2 of those players, you'd probably say the least kind of popular or famous or talented players at City, but then to go to Arsenal and completely shake that up and new levels of professionalism, technical ability, it really has helped. In terms of City and Guardiola's stance, it's always, if you want to go and you've got a good offer, you can go. I think ideally they probably would have wanted them to sell them abroad, but if Arsenal were the ones paying, City were never going to stand in their way. So it is interesting how it's panned out. But also the other side to that response from City is probably, OK, well, it's just a challenge.
Yeah.
We'll go again. Maybe they wouldn't have sold them to Liverpool, maybe. But anyone else, you just think, well, we've got Haaland, we've got Alvarez, we've got these guys. We'll go in our own direction.
How much of this with Arsenal may come down to the psychological pressure then, and how much will having players like Jesus and Zinchenko who have won the title before help in the dressing room?
Yeah, I think their experience and as you mentioned there, the mentality, I think that's a huge thing, because I remember speaking to Sterling when he signed for Chelsea, and he actually mentioned about the mentality at Chelsea not being great. Obviously, he's come from Manchester City and the standards there are so much higher. So it's interesting that you say that, and I can imagine they would have brought that experience and that mentality to this young Arsenal team, and they are young and quite inexperienced. So I think that experience will help them, but also the young players that went through last season, pushed all the way for that 4th, and just missed out. I think they would have learned a lot from that. And you've even seen in Saka's performances, he's matured massively from last season. And he's shown that maturity level of somebody way beyond his years. So I think adding those 2 players in particular is certainly going to help them. And as I say, I think they can push all the way. I think they'll certainly be 1 and 2, I reckon.
And there's just a special atmosphere
the
and
culture
environment
there.
around.
It's the fans,
and the fans as well.
They've got the
singing
fans
that
back on
Saliba
board.
song, and they were loving it.
The fans were so against them, wasn't they? So to have your fans behind you, and the players certainly before, they didn't have that last year. They're pushing for 4th last year, and they didn't have the fans on board. They've got the fans on board now, driving them on as well in difficult moments. What they've shown this year, though, is that they've won games that last year they couldn't win. Leeds away last weekend.
Yeah.
They should have lost that game.
Yeah.
If you watched it, they were under the cosh pretty much most of the game, and they come out on top.
And that Liverpool game.
Absolutely. Yeah. Defensively as well, they've improved a lot this season, and it was announced today that Gabriel signed a new contract, another boost coming into this game at the weekend. Southampton are a strange team, though, because sometimes they can spring an odd result. Do you give them any chance?
Yeah, I think in my prediction, I've gone for a draw.
Have you?
Yeah, but I think it's part of, I'm just trying to test out Arsenal, you know what I mean? If they do fall away, then it's going to be results like this. And if they don't fall away, then they'll win 4-0, and I'll be like, OK, I'll give them more credit next time I'm doing the prediction. But Southampton do get those funny results. I think initially I wrote down 4-1 to Arsenal, but then I thought, no, Southampton, they can spring a bit of a surprise. Maybe Arsenal will see what they're about. So Arsenal probably will win. But Southampton, they can,
OK, well, we'll come on to your predictions.
They can do it.